Good morning. I am Associate Professor Danny Sims, the Head of Leadership Studies for the University of Applied Research and Development, UARD. In our leadership degrees, we discuss diversity in teams, driving diversity and other means to create a real sense of workplace inclusion. The content's very rich. It describes the dimensions of diversity, the impact that diversity and inclusion has on innovation and workforce planning, etc. You know, what occurred to me though is as I help others to learn about diversity and inclusion, what am I actually doing to ensure that the learning opportunities that we provide at UARD for my students are in fact diverse and inclusive? Our motto, my motto, is Nam Omni Doctrina Presto. In short, it means learning for all. In an effort to ensure that we are in fact providing learning for all, I wanted to hear from someone in a position to provide an informed response. On that note, I'd like to introduce Tricia Malowney, a disability activist and advocate. Good morning, Tricia. How are you going today?
Good morning. I'm really well. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you very much for taking the time to speak with me today. The context of the conversation today is to help me and hopefully others to learn a little bit more about how we approach diverse and inclusive learning opportunities and hopefully a little bit more broader discussions. I've got three main topics to talk about today, but I'd like to start with appropriate referencing. I was talking with someone yesterday, a really well-respected business professional, and I happened to mention that you and I were going to talk today, and they were saying, oh yeah, you know, I don't really know how to talk to someone in a wheelchair, or I don't know how to refer to them, and I was going, well, they are people, but he said, oh, no, of course they're people. He said, but I don't know what is the right language to use. So as a starting point today, Tricia, from a context point of view, what is a really respectful and normal and average way for us to communicate with each other? How should we address each other?
Well, you and I call each other Tricia and Danny. That's easy. And I think that the confusion comes around because there's so many different ways to describe disability. So I call myself a woman with a disability. In fact, I usually say I'm a proud woman with a disability because I'm quite happy with who I am. Other people call themselves disabled women or disabled people. And there's a reason for that. Now, for me, I grew up in the 60s when disabled was a bit of a slur. So for me, I'm a person with a disability. So for me, I'm a person first. So we call that person first language. Others, the younger ones, have actually taken a political stand to call themselves disabled people. So that it puts it back on people to say, you know, it's societies that's disabling us. When people worry about how to talk to us, that's not our problem. It's actually society's problem. And so I will tell you, I make mistakes. So don't worry too much about that. You know, all of us make mistakes. I've had a disability all my life. I don't always get it right. I would never say things like, oh, somebody's a Down syndrome baby. No, they have Down syndrome. They're still a baby. Somebody has cerebral palsy. I don't use living with. I find that really strange. Oh, I had polio. So people say, oh, she's a polio survivor. No, I just had polio. Get over it. Or she's living with polio. No, I'm living with my partner. Thanks very much. I'm not actually living with polio. It's a part of my life, but it's not who I am. It's an important part of my life because it's my career, isn't it? I mean, let's face it, if I didn't have polio, I probably wouldn't be doing what I am now. So it really is about being respectful of people and smile, you know. I have people stopping me in the street to say, oh, we're so sorry that you can't walk or whatever it is. You know, would you like us to pray for you? No, I'm quite happy as I am. People are amazed that we actually are no different to the rest of society. We have our good days and bad days, and we're just the same.
Thank you very much for that explanation. So what I'm hearing from that is it's very much about having a conversation and humanising it. That's what I took from that. Thank you. My next question I have for you is, for someone with a disability, living with a disability, what study and work opportunities might exist? Is it as simple as going to a web browser and typing in Bachelor of Leadership and Management, UARD, and click the enrol button? Is what and I apologise for my naivety, but that's why I want to have the conversation. What
That's how it
opportunities are
should
there?
work. That's how it should work. It should be whatever course is available should be available to anybody else. And you don't need to have a different content. You might have to deliver it a bit differently depending on who it is. So you might need to make sure that live captioning is available if we're doing a Zoom meeting like this. Or it might be that you need to have an Auslan interpreter in the room. Or you might need to have your documents printed larger. Although these days everything's on screen so they can enlarge it themselves. But it's about, this is the course I want to do. I should be able to just go and enroll in that course. I shouldn't have to say, oh, that's not for me. We wouldn't do it with any other group. There's no course that's available that I, as a woman, would think, oh, I don't think that's the one I should be doing. There must be a special one for people with disabilities. Having said that, there are some people who actually prefer to learn in groups with other people with disabilities. So I run programs for entrepreneurs, so people with disabilities who want to run their own businesses. And they're only available to people with disabilities because that's what they want. And they actually have said that it's actually so much more comfortable not to have to keep explaining it yourself, telling people what your disability is. So our approach is, we just say to people, what supports do you need? And that's it. You know, some people might need to sit with their camera off. You know, some people just don't want to be in public. So there's those sorts of things. So there's some courses that are available if you have a disability. But in the main, people with disabilities are attending universities alongside everybody else. Now, in my day, I was prevented from going to university because I had a disability. All right, so that's back in the late 60s. Oh, God, I'm old. Back in the late 60s, it wasn't possible for me to go to university, mainly because I was prevented from doing the courses at secondary school that would get me into university. It wasn't that the university said no, I just didn't have the level of learning. So I left school at 16. I went back to university in my 30s. I actually went back to do my HSC and they said to me, what are you doing here? Go to uni. So I did. And my disability wasn't an issue then. What was an issue was that I was old, right? I was 36. And at my first tutorials, one of the guys said, I object to having to do my tutorials with an old woman. I was 36, for goodness sake. So there's barriers all the time, and it's not always because of my disability. But if I want to do medicine, I should be able to, if I've got the right qualifications, I should be able to do medicine. Now, you could say, well, you can't do that if you're in a wheelchair. And I give the example of the doctor in Queensland, I think is his name, I can't remember. He was almost finished med school when he had a car accident and is now quadriplegic. He is practicing as a doctor. So I think the difference is if you've got a long-term disability where you've always had one, to where if you've acquired a disability, well, you're nearly a doctor anyway, so you can go ahead. So it's really about being able to do anything you want to do.
Okay, thank you.
They're a bit long-winded, my answers.
Very informative, though. Very informative. That's why. Thank you for helping me to understand, and I hope it helps others to hear from your perspective as well. I've got one last question. It's a short question, but probably a long answer. What can a learning organisation like my university, UARD, what can we do for a person with a disability to ensure that they have an exceptional learning experience? And it's a simple question, but what I'm looking for is any guidance on from the beginning to the end. And you've already mentioned about closed captions, larger writing, Auslan, etc. But I'm trying to put myself into a situation. I'm a person that whether I'm in a wheelchair, whether I have visual impairments, hearing, whatever, cerebral palsy, whatever, I want to have a career in leadership and management, as an example. It just happens to be my area, so for me it's quite contextual. What advice can you give me to ensure that I can give anyone the best learning experience from enrolment to the time they graduate and enjoy a successful career?
Well, it's actually quite a short answer, believe it or not. So the answer is, for you, I put the onus back on you. Ask people what they need, right? And understand that they are the experts about what they need. And don't fall into the trap of thinking, well, they're deaf, so they will need, or they're blind, they will need, or they're in a wheelchair, they will need, because each person's an individual. So if you were to look at me, for example, because I can't walk, you'd be thinking, oh, I better do this and this and this. So I can't have them in that room because there's a step. Well, I use crutches, so I could probably manage one step. Whereas if I was in a chair, I couldn't. So it's really just a matter of treating us like you would your other students. That's the first thing. Ask us what supports we need to be able to participate fully. That's really it. It's so simple and it's often forgotten. And just believe us when we say we want something, and make sure that people have got the funding needed to be able to get that. So some people think that it's going to be too hard because, oh my goodness, it's, we're going to have to hire an Auslan interpreter. Check with your university about what supports they already have in-house. You'd be surprised what you find when you look.
Okay, well, thank you. It was a medium-term answer. Thank you for the response. Yeah, brilliant.
Short for me.
Brilliant. And as, again, someone that writes the content, delivers some of the content, certainly does a lot of research, provides input on blogs and websites, design, that's really made me think of asking more questions rather than me trying to be, empathy says we should put ourselves in the shoes of others. Bit difficult sometimes because there's only so far I can imagine. So yeah, that's really important to have more conversations about exactly what an individual and a group needs.
Yeah, and it's really funny because so many disabilities aren't visible. So you might have somebody who has autism. So I actually, whenever I do things, I ask everybody what supports they need. I don't just limit to those who look like they might have a disability. So it sort of takes it away from the disability then. It makes it about everybody being treated as people. What supports do you need to be able to do this? And we've got to think reasonable. So yeah, I'd like a Lamborghini to get to and from class isn't reasonable. However, I need stepless entry to the room. That's reasonable. Yes, because we might have a few kids who really want a Lamborghini. They're not going to get it. But it might be, look, I need brakes. I need regular brakes, or I need the notes in advance. I find that one, especially if people have got a mild cognitive impairment. And can I tell you that I love being in sessions with people with mild cognitive impairments because they actually read stuff. You send them the notes and they read it from cover to cover and they ask questions that actually challenge you to go, oh, what did I mean by that? Which is really interesting.
You have sent me down. I'm currently working on a project management platform at the moment to, I'm building out an MBA, a dual MBA and Masters in Leadership and Management offering for later this year. And you've sent me down a massive rabbit hole of what else I need to do and then revisit the existing bachelor's and master programs that we have at the moment. Wow. Thank you.
And I'm happy to help. If there's something you think I'm not sure about, just give us a call.
I'm quite sure that we'll have a continuing conversation. For the purpose of this recorded interview today, is there any other advice you'd like to give me before we finish up today on how we and I as a head of faculty provide the best learning opportunity. Any other advice you'd like to give?
Just don't make assumptions. Just,
Yeah.
treat everybody as an individual, and be prepared to make mistakes, because I make lots.
Thank you. You're not alone. Thank you very much for your time today, Tricia. I look forward to speaking with you again soon.
My pleasure. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you. Bye.